Welcome to Flourishment, the podcast on living life as you are meant to, so you can flourish. Welcome, everyone. I have with me a delightful prayer warrior and a crazy proud mom of 4 children. Her name is Janet McHenry. She is married with gainfully employed, all done with college, 4 kids. She's a writer and author of 24 books. She's a certified life coach, host of the Sierra Valley Writers Retreat, creator of Prayer School, an online masterclass through Teachable, and her best-selling book, 50 Life Lessons for Grads, grew out of her experience as a high school educator and academic advisor. She's here to talk to us today about how to encourage your graduate. Thank you so much for coming on Flourishment today, Janet.
Thank you, Tina, for having me. What a fun time.
Yes, and I love that you are so prayerfully centered and that your heart is for the graduates. They are really suffering this year, particularly with feeling isolated and maybe not even getting to experience graduation the way they normally would. And even if they are, they may be going off ill-equipped to their next stage of life because of missing so much of that in-person experience that they might have had otherwise. Can you talk to us a little bit about your heart for the grads and what you think they're facing right now?
Well, as someone who was a high school English teacher for juniors and seniors, as well as an academic advisor for 26 years in our very small high school here in the Sierra Valley, I know how important these life events are for graduating seniors. And I know that they feel angry. They're trying to cope the best they can. Their parents are frustrated with all of the system that's put holds on so many of the fun things that they get to do, like grad parties or prom, or even a regular graduation commencement ceremony. Those have been kind of stripped away from them. Last year's graduates faced this, and we thought it was going to be all over, but here we are again, over a year later now, and the class of 2021 has been experiencing a lot of the same things. So as someone who organized a good half dozen or more of those kinds of year-end events for seniors, I well know how important they are. And so my heart has been with them in the last year or so.
I think we can address this in 2 ways. What would you first of all say to parents who are wondering how they can support their graduates best when they're facing all these challenges?
They can do several things that don't cost a dime. First off, they can simply express value, that they can mention qualities, positive qualities that they see developing in them as students have been trying to master online learning and other kind of situations. They've lost their sports and so forth, but they actually are maturing and getting ready for adulthood as they are coping with the situations that they've been through. They may not have all these pieces together of their life, but as we express value for the qualities that we see developing in them, that will certainly elevate them and give them more confidence. I think also another thing that we can do that we might not even think of is we can ask them for advice. These graduates have creative problem solving skills that we do not necessarily have, or if we're in our midlife or beyond. And if we ask them for help with technology, or just ask them, I am considering changing my career focus. What do you think about that? That expresses a lot of trust in them, and they need to have that right now. That will also build confidence. There's some simple practical things we can do together. If kids are sitting in front of a computer all day long, maybe we could all get healthy together. So say, let's go for a walk together. And then, or let me show you how to, cook in a healthy kind of way. Let's go to the gym together if the gym's available. The streets are still available. We can go out and have a great walk. But to practice getting healthy together and to develop those really important life skills. And then to pray for them. They have some difficult choices ahead. Right now, graduating seniors are making decisions about a career focus, and colleges by May 1st, they have to, decide which college they're going to go to, whether they're going to go in the military and make that kind of a huge leap. And they also are going to begin to make choices about how they're going to follow their faith. They are going to have faith in something. We just hope that it is certainly our Creator God, the God Most High, that they put their faith in.
I think young people, as a therapist and a life coach, I'm seeing this more, are facing anxiety and stress at a greater level than ever before. And research is showing us that they're experiencing this at higher levels than people in older generations and older ages. So, can you talk a little bit about how we can address the stress and anxiety that people that are young adults or new adults are facing right now?
I think it would be important to recognize signals of depression, signals of potential suicide. I had a child of my own who demonstrated that kind of behavior when he was in college and feeling very hopeless. And we began having long conversations. The initial one of those was one where he was saying things like, Mom, I'm going to give my set of golf clubs to Joshua. He just started, playing on the high school golf team. And so he doesn't have any decent clubs, Mom, and I'm going to give him this. And I think he could also use, there was that kind of a conversation going on. So I think it's important to get away from the technology for long periods of time, an evening with our kids, to have a face-to-face dinner with them, to have conversation, to develop those kinds of communication skills so that they feel comfortable sharing actually where they are and how they're feeling about themselves and their lives. So, and if we get to the place where we feel, I don't know what more I can do, to actually get professional help for them.
That's great advice. And that goes hand in hand with what you'd already recommended with exercise, getting outside, which actually reduces stress and anxiety, and prayer, which is so important for parents and for our young people. That is just a powerful thing that we can do in any of these situations. So that communication and that prayer and that getting out to exercise and making sure that we take time to get away from technology are super important for encouraging our graduate and for helping them to have a mental health situation that's going to be better than it might be considering the circumstances that we're all in.
Absolutely, Tina. Yeah, we need to stay tuned in together as a family, and as an extended family, grandparents too, if they can, rather than complain or about the situation that we're in, the circumstances that are uncontrollable in our lives right now, if they can also get involved and plug in and take their kids golfing, take their kids to play tennis, or just on a great long walk, that kind of can help stimulate conversation, because teenagers don't necessarily, open up very easily face to face. But in the car, when you're going somewhere, or if you're out on a walk, they begin to open up more freely.
How can parents work together with educators when they're talking about the situations surrounding students that are older students, graduates, or college students? Is there a way that they can navigate that process without being too intrusive, but yet remaining supportive?
I would say, just staying in constant touch with the teacher via email is probably the best form of communication for the teacher, so that she or he could, when they are able to, get to that email, answer any questions a parent might have, set up conferences, set up face-to-face conferences if that's possible, I think schools are opening up somewhat to those kinds of situations where you can set up a meeting and you just have an honest discussion about what's going on. Parents are probably the most tuned in to the ways that their children learn best. Lots of students don't learn very well via a Zoom. And so there could be other creative ways. And I know our school district has addressed that. There can be creative ways that students' needs for learning can actually be tweaked in a plan where educators are working with the parents, with the child, and perhaps they can actually come to a classroom, for example, and work with an aide, get that kind of support that they need to help them through, and get the kind of counseling that they need, specifically academic kinds of counseling as they're planning their futures.
So, if we're talking on the second fold piece of this, directly to the graduate, what are some things that you would want to say directly to that high school or college graduate to help them be encouraged on their journey?
I would say that there are lots of really great life lessons that can be learned. And that was kind of what inspired my writing the book, 50 Life Lessons for Grads. I began to communicate with young people as they were planning their college experience or their career experience or their military experience. And I learned these kids have already learned a whole lot of things. And what's been fun is that over the years, a lot of those young people have stayed in touch with me because of the ease of social media and the way that we can stay informed about what's going on in our lives. So I began to think I should tap in to some of what they know. And they know a lot of what works and what doesn't work in life. For example, one of the life lessons one young person wrote was life isn't fair. That by the time they ended college, they realized, oh, so grading can be a little subjective, or the way that I'm appreciated or not appreciated in a classroom experience, that doesn't come out fairly sometimes. So learning those kinds of lessons in life are marks of maturity. They're those stones that we can pile up and say, I learned that piece, I learned that piece. Another can be that simply that waiting can bring unexpected blessings. That's another one of the life lessons in the book. When you're postponed and you're pushed back and you're so frustrated that things haven't worked out, the dominoes haven't fallen the way that you planned, that waiting, learning that process of waiting can actually be a process of growth, and that the waiting is worth it when God puts all the pieces in together for you for that career or that relationship that you've been hoping and praying for. There was another interesting life lesson that one young person wrote about for the book called Interruptions Can Be Opportunities. Some of us who are like more focused and zoned in and just want to get our thing done, we can often see interruptions as problems, because we want to push forward and get all the things done that we need to have done. Whereas actually, those interruptions are usually related to relationships, important relationships that we have. And so taking a pause to help a relationship develop, that relationship that we have with a relative that we might have, with a grandparent, with a child, a younger sibling or something like that. It's just another one of those life skills that we learn.
So there's a lot of positive pieces in your book for graduates to mark as part of their journey. What about where they're going next? That can be very fearful and for good reason. Sometimes they're on the threshold of facing a less sheltered situation that could threaten their faith, that could unseat the things that they feel secure in, and get them in front of some things they're not maybe ready to address entirely. How can graduates stay anchored in their faith when they know that they're going to be facing a tremendous number of challenges to that?
Two ways. staying in God's word or starting a practice of reading God's word, something there every single day, and prayer. Staying in touch with God all day long. Instead of seeing prayer as a last response, that they look at prayer as a first opportunity to be able to connect to the problem solver of our lives, the God Most High, who knows everything that's going to be happening to us, has a sovereign plan for our lives, and that plan is a good one. So I think if parents they're worried about how their child is going to do, to have those conversations with them that expresses what they went through when they were in college, how they developed a personal relationship with God, how they initially put their faith in Jesus Christ, and then how they began to grow in the faith. And usually that has to do with reading God's word, having a prayer life, and finding fellowship in some kind of way, either through a college campus Christian group or through the local church, or both.
And as parents are watching their students go off into these places, whether it's off into college or off out of college into the career world, it can be very difficult for a parent to let go and let that college student or that career age student go off and make their own decisions about faith. But that's very important, isn't it?
I believe so. And when my kids headed off to college, each of them, one thing that I did was went on the website of a Christian organization that I believe strongly in, and I just wrote a personal note. Hey, my child Rebecca is going to be coming to Biola University. I just wanted to touch base with you. Here's her cell phone number. Would you please, make contact with her? I'm sure that she will be looking for some new good friends. And I did that with each of the kids, and they were able to get connected either with Crew or with InterVarsity, or in some cases with a local church as well.
Now, sometimes you might have a student who's going to find that a little bit overstepping. You kind of have to know your student, whether you know that they are going to be receptive to something like that before you do that, right?
Absolutely, that's for sure. And I would let the student know. I would let my child know. You know how I am, and I want the best for you. And so I contacted these kind folks, and I think they will kind of steer you to some good friends. When my daughter, our youngest, went off to Berkeley, that place is a jungle. I know that because I went there. My husband did too. And so we wanted to make sure that when she got there, that she got connected with some great friends. And she did not find that overstepping, because it was kind of a big, scary, hairy place. And she was able to make really great connections with several young women. And actually, her last 3 years in college, the first year she was in the dorm, but the last 3 years, she was either in an apartment or in the flat of a house with 7 other Christian girls. And they still stay in touch. And so I think as parents, we have to be able to let the umbrella fold up. We have to fold up the umbrella, let God rain down directly on them, really go fervently into prayer for their situation and for them, and just trust that God is going to work directly on them. Certainly, we are still the parent, but they have to begin to find their own faith. And that can't necessarily be dependent on what I've said or what I've done. They have to figure out the faith for themselves. And certainly, foundations are important, they're critical. The foundations as a family that we've erected for them over the years, but they will have to find their own authentic faith. And we can trust that God will help them do that.
Yes. And showing them that respect will keep those lines of communication open with them. So if you show that you respect their ability to make a decision, even if they make wrong decisions, and they will, right?
They will. They will. And I think it's important to stay in touch with your kids when they go off, after high school. But, step back perhaps a little bit. Don't smother them continually. every couple days, send a text. Maybe you have the practice of having a conversation once a week, but let them find themselves, let them develop their roots in their new environment and trust that they will do that well.
This is the time when often students will reject all their family values to a certain degree and go off and make some mistakes in order to find their own way. So, parents should expect their students to make some wrong choices and maybe do some things that are out of character for them without overreacting to those mistakes.
Right. Our job is simply to love them well,
Yeah.
and love them despite those mistakes, despite the attitudes. And they will come around. One study, when I was writing another book called Prayer Changes Teens: How to Parent from Your Knees, one study showed that 85% of those who said that they had, moved away from their Christian faith came back to the faith. So it's a matter of our trusting God as well, not just them, to figure out all the pieces, but for us to step back and see the wonder works that God is going to do in them.
Yeah. We're to trust God, not try to be God and control
Exact,
everything.
exactly.
This has been a wonderful teaser of information because I know that you have a whole lot more to offer, Janet. Can you tell listeners how they can stay connected with you and find your new book and be able to purchase that and stay in touch with your community online?
Absolutely. I am on all of the various kind of social media outlets, Janet McHenry, and I also have a website, janetmchenry.com. And I would love to connect with anyone who has particularly a child heading off to college or heading out after high school. If you want to connect with me and send me a picture of your kid, I have a board that I keep in my house and I post pictures of high school grads and I pray for them for that entire next year. And so I would love to be able to do that for your child as well.
What a beautiful and generous offer to be willing to pray for the children of listeners who send that information to you. I so appreciate that. And I know that listeners appreciate that too. Janet, are there any other final tips that you want to offer to parents or to graduates?
Just to encourage them to have a looking up perspective, that no matter what the situation might be, no matter what your child has been going through the last year plus now, that God is still sovereign. He is still worthy of our praise, and that we can go to Him when we feel as though everything is wrong, to keep praying and to go out and walk and to pray for your community as well.
Thank you so much, Janet. This has been a wonderful conversation. I hope that all of you listening have enjoyed this as much as I have. And I hope that you will get your hands, if you have a graduate that's a grandchild, a child, or if you are a graduate of high school or college coming up soon, get Janet McHenry's book, 50 Life Lessons for Grads. It's her best-selling book. Make sure that you connect with her. And of course, I also hope that you will come back for the next episode of Flourishment.